Good afternoon. This is the Westport Board of Health, November 28th, 2022 meeting that I am calling to order. First announcement under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F. This meeting is being recorded. And second, let's join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, this looks like a short meeting. We're gonna keep on rolling here, and we'll go directly to the Director of Public Health written report. Any questions on that?
None from me, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Nope.
Then we'll go to the updates.
So COVID update, to date in November, 44 confirmed cases are being reported through the state surveillance system, no hospitalizations, no deaths that we're aware of. Pump reports, everything looked good. Director approved plans. We have a 3-bedroom new construction on 1 Seabury Lane for an Erin Fennelly. It's been through Concom. No D-night on this one. It's out of the watershed, and it was submitted before the new regs took effect. So that's the reason for no D-night. Then we have a 3-bedroom repair on 292 Brayton Point Road for a Peter Carney on a 28,048 square foot lot using a bottomless sand filter and an Advantex AX20, and it's been through Concom. We have a 5-bedroom upgrade. This is going up, and it's an upgrade with increase in flow on 3 Gooseberry Farm Lane for a John Dromsky on 4.5 acres, 4.55 acres, using a quick 4 with a Singular 960 DN. It's been through Concom.
Okay, any questions on that? Does the Peter Carney one need a deed restriction?
Peter Carney.
292 Brayton.
Oh, yes, it's gonna need a deed restriction.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
If not, I'd entertain a motion to endorse the approvals for these 3 projects.
I move that we endorse the approvals of the 3 septic systems for 1 Seabury Lane, 9 Gooseberry Farm Lane, and 292 Brayton Point Road, with the condition of a 3-bedroom deed restriction.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Can we just make a correction? That was 3 Gooseberry Farm, not 9?
What did I say?
9. So 3.
Okay.
So just for the record, that's 3 Gooseberry Farm Lane. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you.
I do have a comment, and I realized this going backwards, just in terms of our keeping current on the status of systems, particularly for cesspools, that whereas when, at least I take notes, like when cases come in front of us, that, but then, as we move forward and cases come in, so if John has already looked at 292 Brayton Point Road, whatever's there, if it was a cesspool and you mark it as, so I'm just thinking that there ought to be, I don't know if it's part of this sheet or there's just some other mechanism to keep that updated.
So the only way to do it right now is to go into his original list with this one and update what he has.
Yeah. So.
Were any of these were any of these the repair and the upgrade, is that from a cesspool?
No.
Is that what you're asking, Phil? I'm not sure.
I didn't know if it was, I was just realizing that, and for me, going back a ways, all the ones that came in as MAT-approved systems, I wouldn't have recorded as a cesspool because we didn't see the plans. And
Right.
and then, because John is doing it in alphabetical order, which obviously makes sense, so there's Brayton Point Road, well, then we need to go back and update his list if it was a cesspool there that got upgraded, that's what I was thinking.
And there you go. How about that?
Oh, there you go.
I have been doing, Don and I have been going through John's, because a lot of, as we noted the last time, a lot of
Yeah.
his no plans are, there's no valid address, or there's no house on it, it's a vacant lot, or whatever.
Right.
And anything that is, he has no plan, or, we check for if there's a plan in process, and update the information.
Okay,
And
great.
what I've been doing, because we have an Excel spreadsheet now of all the properties in town,
Mm-hmm.
is, at first I was just updating just putting in cesspool, but it made sense to go back and just put in everything, so we have a baseline of,
Mm-hmm.
so there's if it's a stone bed, it's a, S, how, 1,500 or 1,000,
Wow.
depending on the gallon of the tank.
Right.
Tight tank, on East Beach Road right
Excuse me.
now, self-contained, whatever, IA, D-night,
Mm-hmm.
cesspool. So, that will get out of date, as we go forward
Right.
unless we are able to have somebody maintain it. But at least we're gonna have a good baseline, so for the outreach around cesspools, it should be fairly accurate, fairly up to date.
Right.
But that's a good point.
Excuse me.
Okay, let's move on to animal control.
Sure, so animal control, Nick's been keeping up as best he can, doing a pretty good job. On the barn books, out of 178 total barn books, between him and Joe, they've got 171 complete. The remaining 7 are scheduled and should be done by mid-December. We get down to the nitty-gritty of people that can't meet during the day or can only maybe meet during the weekend, so Nick's just trying to get those completed.
Great, thank you.
Transfer station, they had the short week last week with Thanksgiving. It's the same thing every year. Half a day on Monday. We're always closed on Tuesday, Wednesday. Closed for Thursday on Thanksgiving. Closed for Friday because the town's closed. Reopen Saturday. It's the same thing every year. We do our best to outreach. The difference this year is we have this giant digital sign that's parked right at the front gate with the hours. We put it on the web page. It's on the transfer station page. It has the holiday hours. I don't know how else to outreach to people, but I encourage people that missed all of that to, next year kind of look at the web page or look at the digital sign and the town web page to check the holiday schedule for Thanksgiving week.
Okay.
Transfer station also, I just wanted to get the board's permission to repost the transfer station worker position. Put it out for, where we put it out on the job boards. So I'd like to get that out, or at least get it, I'm pretty sure the select board may have to approve reposting of the position, but I would need to get this board's permission to do that.
Could you state why we need to do that?
One of the employees had given their 2-week notice today, so I wanna get ahead of it as soon as we can.
Any discussion on that? Otherwise, I take a motion to approve reposting the worker position. Transfer
So
station.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
So, other things going on at the transfer station. It looks like that our permanent bathroom will be a heated porta-john at the transfer station, so we're not gonna get a building or anything of the sorts. So when I was informed of that, it made no sense to continuously rent a porta-john, because it costs the town a good amount of money in our budget specifically. So it made sense to buy one. So I did purchase one. It's an accessible unit, it's identical to what we have. We'll just put it in place when it comes in, and I'll return the rental.
Okay. How have the staff said anything about it's an upgrade from what they had before, but any further comments from the staff?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think as long as it, meets the labor standard requirements.
It's got heat in it, and as far as the hot water goes, we purchased a hot water hand sink that's inside the new building we have there, so they have hot water available in there.
Okay.
Alrighty, thank you. Okay, any other, okay, then we'll move on to, the minutes of November 14th. Any questions or concerns?
I have none.
I'm fine.
Okay,
Okay, so I move that we approve the minutes of November 14th, 2022.
second,
Okay.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous, thank you. Okay, we move on to discussion, other business, with the first is the request from the town administrator to discuss septic system options for Beech Grove Cemetery. As you know, this was also cited by DLS, and I guess they have a porta-john there currently.
They have a heated porta-john. They also, the town purchased them a hot water hand sink. They have as well. I've been told that Diamond is over there constructing a bathroom for them inside the cemetery garage. So the porta-john over there is just temporary until their bathroom is completed.
Okay. If it was deemed acceptable to have a heated porta-john at the transfer station as a permanent solution, why is that not acceptable at the cemetery?
That is an excellent question, Madam
It's
Chair.
a great question, but that's not my decision or I just don't know. You'd have to ask the town administrator.
Okay, well, I would put that consider putting that on in our response. Okay, well, let me read the, email from Mr. Hartnett, and, we can discuss. Matt, with your help, we addressed the corrective actions required by the DLS for the cemetery and transfer station. Portable restrooms and hand washing stations have been added to both locations. This meets the minimum requirements by the DLS, but is only a short-term solution, especially for the cemetery. The town has been working on a more permanent solution for the cemetery and is working with Diamond students to construct an indoor restroom, and we expect this work to be completed during the school year. To finish the project, we need a system to collect and dispose of the septic waste. Preferred solution based on cost, use, and minimal maintenance would be a traditional gravity septic system. This is an existing facility, no expansion or new construction, and the flows will be minimal. The cemetery department has only 3 employees who work at different locations throughout the day. And so he wants to know if a gravity system would be permitted at this site. He doesn't believe a D-Night system is a feasible option. And if gravity is not permitted, we would look to install a tight tank. So let's evaluate the circumstances there. There's never been a septic system. Well, let me turn first to Matt. What's your input on this?
My input on this is if the board were to deem this existing in some way or repair, it would open up the option to put a tight tank in for the location. If the board would deem this new construction, that tight tank option is no longer viable, and a conventional system or system with D-Night would have to be put in. There's always been a sink there with gray water, but there's never been any system or any flow coming out of that building, so, and I just, that's the facts that I have, so I don't know how the board would view this.
Okay, well, new construction includes increase in flow, and there's no flow there currently, correct? What are your thoughts, Phil?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I kind of went back and looked at the TITEC, regulations again, and I agree with Matt under the, the rules are pretty clear, even that, unless it meets the exceptions, which this doesn't meet, that it's not permittable under Title V. And there are some exceptions for municipal, for municipal facilities, but they're really kind of seasonal facilities. And in fact, the ones for seasonal facilities are for residential, and for the ones for municipalities, it doesn't apply. I think the thing that Matt mentioned to me when I was talking to him, which is something we need to consider, and maybe we need to talk to the potential vendor, is whether or not the flow, just from 3 people working there, I don't know if they work there every day.
No, there's a lot of cemeteries in town, so they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So they go out to the other one, was it Maple Grove
Yeah.
on Reed Road, and then there's a bunch of little ones, so they don't exclusively just work at that
Right, and
facility.
I don't know if they would be coming back. I'm just trying to think about, whether the denitrification technology would really be functional in that setting, because then it really would be, kind of counterproductive to require that. And so it seems like we could be in a situation which has not really been, anticipated, by the regulation. So then we might have to, so I'd like to get that answered, kind of first, to get an idea of what the actual flow would be, and whether, Matt, in looking at it and consulting with the, what would likely be the system, whether that could handle that, because I think if it can, then I think kind of Title V kind of boxes us in pretty tightly. If not, then we could consider whether we would kind of make an exception and make it clear why on the record that it was, if we wanted to do something.
Well, it would need to be then handled under a variance procedure?
I think so, yeah, I think so, yeah. Because if it ended up with a tight tank, then at least you would have equivalent environmental protection, because there would be no, release of pollutants, and then you're in the more ambiguous manifest injustice. And if we're doing it not for economic reasons, but because you would have a dysfunctional system, then I think that would be the case, that you would just it wouldn't be you'd be engineering and installing a system that would be dysfunctional, and I don't think that would make sense. So that's kind of where I am at this point, I guess.
Okay. Donna?
I'm still stuck on why the cemetery and not the transfer station. I'm very stuck on that, but I defer to the expertise of Phil in terms of what would be the best possible solution in this case, because I am torn, especially with the idea of new construction versus a repair, which is really not a repair because there is no existing system.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that if the town wishes to pursue a septic solution beyond what is existing there now, which is acceptable at the transfer station as a solution, then they would, in any case, would need to request a variance. The town would need to request a variance and come to us with information about the flows, and the an engineer plan that says we believe that tight tank is the best option, or whatever. Yes.
So I think that what we have to do before we get to that point would be to determine whether or not this is gonna be repair or new construction. That way, they know tight tank is on the table, right off the table. Because I think what I heard, what I think I heard the board say was, we have to really figure out what type of system they're gonna put in, and will that system handle, minimal flow and still be able to function appropriately. So I think to give
Okay.
the town administrator a clear path on which way to go, if it's not gonna be considered a repair whatsoever, then that should be clear, so he knows what road to go down, and then we can, however the town decides to, this is probably gonna have to be a procurement type of situation, solicit bids and scope work the whole 9 yards, and once that's all gone through, then we could work with the consultant to see which way the best way to go is, or he could, and then we could advise, I guess, if we needed to.
Well, we haven't been given, based on what you've told us, my layman's interpretation is that this is new construction, that there's no existing flow, so it meets the definition of new construction under Title V and under our local septic regulation.
Okay, so tight tank is out, and then.
That's my opinion. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no,
It's not-
I
I
think it'd
share
be
that.
hard to argue that this was not the creation of a new flow that wasn't there before. I mean, I know they had a hand sink, but, it's like people have outdoor showers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they could put a toilet in there and do whatever they wanted and not consider it new flow. And I think that the whole purpose, doesn't really apply in this situation, but I think the whole purpose or one of the purposes behind limiting tight tanks was so people could not use tight tanks in a lot of situations where, the ground wasn't permeable, or they could just say, well, I had a shed here and I wanna, put a house in, or whatever, or do something, or use it, and not treat it as new construction, so. But, so I think so I agree with that. It just seems like it would be difficult not to then allow any person who wanted to add a toilet to any garage or any other facility to just say, well, there was no,
Right. Okay.
it's not new building,
You
so
agree
it's
with
not
that?
new construction.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I
okay,
agree
so the consensus is that this would be considered new construction, which under Title V does not allow a tight tank for new construction. Is there any exception? I don't know.
Not for new construction.
Okay. Okay.
I did run this by DEP a month or so ago, where I talked to both Brett and Mary Beth on an email, and new construct, they very clearly bluntly said, no, you can't do it for new construction.
Okay. So I guess we would advise the town administrator that this would be considered new construction, and he can proceed accordingly, with a notation that since the heated portable restroom is an adequate solution for the transfer station, we suggest they consider it adequate for the cemetery. maybe we shouldn't put that in.
And
That's not
but it's-
our
it's-
business, but,
And it's not, my response to the town wanting to do it in the cemetery, I still question why they wouldn't do it, but my response to the limit of it being new construction has nothing to do with it, it's separate. And so to be clear, you know, there is no existing septic system and there is no flow, so it's increase in flow, so we have to focus on that and nothing else.
right, okay.
So you know, I agree, that if they are not able to meet the new criteria of its new construction, then certainly the solution would be to do what's being done at the transfer station.
Solution would be what?
The solution is to have the heated porta john like that's at the transfer station, so,
That's up to the town
Yeah.
administrator to,
yeah.
Well, I don't know, what we're saying is alternatively, if they came to us and said, if we're, it seems like under our regulation, and I don't have that section there.
This regulation?
I have it right here.
Yeah, I mean, that we, you know, that for our purposes, you know, that strict, you know, so the alternative would provide greater protection, and strict enforcement would be manifestly unjust, and the variance is not inconsistent with the intent or purpose of Title V of this regulation. I mean, we wouldn't have to be granting them a variance necessarily under, I think that's the same standards, whether or not we would consider that if it was demonstrated that a D-night system would not function under the operating conditions there. So that would be the other thing. So if he wants to explore that,
Right. Yeah, if you
you
want,
know, pursuing that, then I think we should tell him that as well.
right, you could pursue a variance, to avoid the, with regard to the D-night requirement under our local regulation, if he so chooses. But it's up to the town administrator to decide.
Because it's only the D-night part of it that he would have trouble with.
Right.
And that's really the part that's under our jurisdiction.
Right.
So,
But we will have to make clear that he cannot install a tight tank. I mean, he's saying
right,
if gravity is not
right,
permitted,
so that
we'd
he
be
could
looking
then
to install a
just
tight
install
tank,
a
that's not an
standard
option.
system. Right, so they could just install a standard system.
So it's either a gravity system or
Right,
a heated porta-john,
right.
as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
There may be other creative solutions, or there may be new D-night technology that works in those circumstances, like
Right.
those nitro
Yeah.
or whatever, some of the newer
Yeah.
systems that are being tested now.
You mean best available technology?
Yes, there we go.
What
And
about,
there's,
what did they
and
use
there's
it?
public interest, you know, in this too, because it is.
Composting system? Isn't that, what does Watershed use?
What is,
Composting toilets,
Yeah,
that's another
Oh.
option, composting
Yeah.
toilets.
yeah, yeah,
That's true. So,
But they also have, you also have, the watershed also has a gray water system.
yeah,
They have like a septic system just for gray water.
mm.
right,
So, down there, so,
yeah.
So there
But-
are multiple avenues to pursue for the
Right.
town
But
administrator.
that would, but it's not it's not a D-night system, it's just a great.
it's just the gray water for the hand
Yeah,
sink
yeah,
and stuff
right,
like that.
right, so
Yeah.
that's another possibility,
Yeah.
yep. I mean, it may be because of the connection with the Diamond students that it was motivating that.
What's motivating, I think, because all we have to do, if I understand correctly, we just kind of pay for the materials.
Yeah,
We don't have to pay these outrageous labor costs, so, but
yeah,
still.
but a composting toilet might be a good alternative.
yeah,
I'm not really sure how they work and how that process, but that could be a good alternative. They
Yeah.
could build a bathroom, but put
There
in a
are, I mean,
composting toilet.
I mean, I know that they are expensive, I don't think necessarily to operate, but just to install, because of the engineering involved in that.
Mhm.
Well, that's out of our
Yeah,
realm. So, so we will direct Matt to advise the town administrator that we have deemed, we would consider this new construction unless I don't think there's any evidence he can provide that would change that, based on the information we have in front of us.
Okay.
And that a tight tank is not permitted for new construction. And we'll leave it at that,
Mhm.
okay? Do we need to take a vote, or is that, everybody clear on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
We'll advise.
advising,
Yeah, it's advisory.
Yep.
Okay, it's 4:30, and Mr.
Maybe he's
Potter
not
is not
here yet.
here. Let's go to other business number 2, meeting schedule, the week of 12/26. Our next regular meeting will be the 12th or something, I forget.
Yeah.
And then the meeting after that would be normally on December 26th, which is a holiday for Christmas. So the question is, do we want to reschedule that to like a Tuesday? Do we want to skip it? Do we want to go just, one other option I thought about would be just to go one extra week, because we're now in sync with the Board of Selectmen, or maybe we're not, I don't know, because they're not meeting today.
Are you talking about meeting on the 2nd?
So, yeah, well, the 2nd is also a holiday, so it would have to be on that Tuesday, and I don't know what Concom's schedule is, so. that's
Oh,
another
I don't
factor.
have that with me, but I can find out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not-
I don't have a New Year's schedule.
We can also just go to, you just skip that meeting, because the calendar's been pretty light in terms of, we haven't really had variance hearings for the last couple of meetings, so, people are not actively constructing right now.
So both the week of the 26th and the week of the 2nd are both short weeks,
Right,
right? So you got the Christmas holiday that
Yeah.
we that we'll be taking Christmas on Monday the 26th. And then it's another short week, because I think Friday, I'm not positive about this, but maybe on Friday we have a half a day for New Year's Eve. I think the town
Yeah.
might give us a half day for New Year's Eve. I'd have to
Okay.
look into that. So it's a short week on both ends, because the following week we have the New Year's holiday.
so,
Well, I would know certainly by the 12th, what the Concom schedule
Yeah.
is for January, so.
well, my inclination is, let's just cancel the
Okay,
December 26th meeting. We have not had a
Yeah.
really heavy workload.
right,
And we can schedule a special meeting if something urgent comes up,
yeah,
unless you think there's administrative stuff around the hiring or whatever.
Well, I mean, if something comes up on that front and, we have to move on something, I'll email you guys and see if you want to do a special meeting.
Okay, so, how do people feel with that?
That's
Yeah, that's fine. No, I
with
wasn't
me.
saying don't cancel the 26th
Yeah.
meeting, but I
Okay.
was just saying maybe we could have a revised schedule for the January meeting.
This way, if we agree to that, then we can give people advance notice that
Yeah.
there'll be no meeting
Okay.
on the 26th.
So I move that we cancel the December 26th Board of Health meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Okay. Well, let's, move on to board member updates, and, we can turn to Mr. Potter when he arrives. Donna, let me start with you. Anything you'd like to share?
Well, I would like to praise Mr. Weinberg because the DEP public info session
Yeah,
on the 16th of November,
yeah,
I listened in on that,
yeah.
and Mr. Weinberg asked the DEP questions, and he stumped them.
Yeah,
They said, we'll have to get back to you on that. So I was very proud of his posing questions, and they were questions that he's mentioned to us on the board and some concerns he had. And so that has made the department, the DEP, dig further to come up with some solutions, and that's the purpose of those meetings. So, but it was very informative for me, but it was also, I felt very proud to be on the board based on Phil's participation in that.
Well done, Phil, thank you.
And then I continue on very slowly with the process of evaluating, looking at the
The
cesspool.
cesspool research,
Identifying cesspools and going through the files, so.
That is a slow process. I think it's ultimately worthwhile getting an electronic record of all of our files, but it is very slow going.
Mhm.
So that bottle of wine will be delivered at your house shortly.
Thank you. I prefer a red, so.
All right, good. So noted.
Yeah.
So I wanted to follow up just with where we were process-wise, and if we want to take the time, I could try to summarize some additional points. And so just, so the next two dates so there's the kind of first public hearing is on the 30th, you know, November 30th at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be online, you know, and in the regional office in Lakeville. And then the written comments are going to be on the 15th, or doing the close of business on December 15th. And so I've been talking to Bob Daler from the planning board, because the planning board, you know, the way I see the kind of division, so to speak, of responsibility is that the planning board would likely be the lead for what would happen on the watershed permit side of it if ultimately we do the watershed permit. And a lot of the questions that came up at the, you know, the meeting that we had with DEP was related to the watershed permit, and that we would be the kind of the lead on the Title V revisions, you know, if that got implemented. And obviously, you know, we would be involved in the watershed permit part, because a lot of it's going to involve septic issues. But so that then led to Bob and I suggesting that we meet with Jim Hartnett just to talk about that, and to then, prior to the public, the hearing, to the written comments to be due, to see if Jim wanted just to have the Board of Health go ahead and make written comments, or, you know, how he wanted to work that out, and whether or not then to have the December, that there be some kind of update to the select board on their December 5th meeting about what was going on. So we're going to meet with Jim tomorrow morning just to say, here's a reminder of the dates. You know, do you think the select board would want to get briefed, you know, about what we're generally going to say and where we are for the 5th? So that is that, and then so then I'm going to, I think, modify. So the initial draft comments I wrote, which said a lot about the watershed permit and this issue about it, just to say generally, I feel more comfortable about the question I asked about the watershed permit, and just in terms of, I think, the flexibility, having read it more closely, the flexibility on paper that the watershed permit process would allow to address what I see as the, on the one hand, there's this emphasis, or there are like 3 levels of compliance even in the TMDL approval. There is meeting all the nitrogen loading reductions that were generated by the model. There's the water quality compliance at the Sentinel stations. And then there is how much eelgrass is growing in the river. And I was first really concerned that the way I was reading the watershed permit is that they were really focused on the nitrogen loading values that were generated, you know, in the MEP and the TMDL, et cetera. and in contrast to where we are in water quality, and the fact that there's gonna be a bunch of years going forward before we're designated, and so it could be we would have years of documenting that the river is in compliance in terms of the strategy that the town might want to adopt in that circumstance. Anyway, so, but now I feel comfortable about that we'll be able to work that out. But I still think there are continue to be a number of problems with the Title V revisions that I think will present problems to us and issues with the homeowners. You know, for example, of all the homeowners that for new construction and for upgrades, that we're gonna be requiring them to install nitrogen reducing systems, you know, only then to find out that they might, in a short term later, need to replace those systems again because of the way the provisions are met. And I think that, you know, so anyway.
I agree that that approach, or the limited sort of grandfathering that's provided, really disincentivizes the approach that we've pursued, and
Right.
is really pretty
Yeah,
drastic. I know that I don't know. I'm guessing DEP is not trying to make the Title V requirements user-friendly or easy to manage, because they want everyone to do a watershed permit.
Right.
So they're trying to make it
yeah,
sort of as miserable as possible, it seems. So anyways,
right, yeah.
so can I just ask for a quick, Matt, could you try to text or call Len to find out if he's coming? Because otherwise we're,
I can, he's a big boy though, he knows his appointment's at 4:30.
well, I'm, okay.
But if you want me to, I will.
He's usually very prompt, so, otherwise because it's a month
Okay.
until we have another meeting, so if he wants input, he needs to be here. Okay, so, thank you, Phil, for taking the lead on all this stuff. It sounds like, first is the meeting tomorrow morning.
Right.
Jim, to find out the strategy. I'm comfortable with you taking the lead on making commentary around the Title V stuff.
Take-
And however you work that out with Bob around the watershed permit. I think there's
Yeah.
probably input from
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
And of course, it depends on how Jim wants to proceed. So what I would suggest is whatever written commentary you
Yeah, yeah, and I would definitely try to
develop.
like circulate it in advance
Yeah.
to you all, and I have been, you know, kind of keeping Matt in the loop on all this stuff,
Right.
on the written stuff that I've been doing, and, you know, this other thing with Jim just kind of came up because of the holiday and wasn't having a chance to, in any event, yeah.
Okay.
And then, I'll probably, you know, I think, you know, Matt was saying, because I was being a little bit ambivalent about giving comments on Wednesday night, but Matt said he should, so I think just I'm gonna give some similar, just overview comments and then just reserve, you know, what we want to say for the written comments.
My guess, my understanding is that usually at a public hearing DEP receives, but they don't respond at all,
Right,
correct?
they
So-
don't, right, it's not like a public information session.
Right,
They'll-
so,
They'll just receive comments, but,
yeah.
um, yeah.
Okay, Donna, you comfortable with what I'm recommending is that we let Phil continue to take the lead, develop the written comments, and we'll circulate that, and
I have full faith in Mr. Phil. Did I hear you say we don't have another meeting for a month? Aren't we gonna meet on the 12th?
I'm sorry, yes, we're meeting on the 12th, my mistake, I'm jumping the gun, I'm so anxious for the
Wishful
holidays,
thinking.
I guess. Yeah,
So,
I'm like, what
so
happened? Wait a minute.
so I thought one item on the agenda for the 12th
Mhm.
is that I have been talking with Roberta from the Watershed Alliance about the the cesspool, like, frequently asked questions sheet and their idea of helping us with the mailing. And so I thought that, I just spoke to her today, and I thought there's between now and then we could kind of at least talk about some of the details and who would be doing what, and have you guys look at, what we had drafted up at that point, and then, just to keep.
Sure, we
the-
can,
Keep the
yes,
process moving
stay
on
in
that,
the
and we'll
loop.
see what we'll do. We'll
Right,
see,
I think,
the timing on that, but.
The, I know that, because I talked with John just before we came down, he hasn't been able to work at all on the research in the last month or so because he
Yeah.
was on a vacation and a lot of things to catch up on. So I think I looked at his notebook. He's up to Hebert Terrace. So we still got a long way to go. He's thinking
Right,
some of those.
right,
um,
yeah,
Horseneck Road, Sodom Road, lots of
Yeah,
properties.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we've got a long way to go still.
right, yeah.
So we're not ready
Urgency.
to do
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
mailings yet, but it's certainly to lay the groundwork. Sure, so we can put that on the agenda for the 14th. Is Mr. Potter
Well,
coming?
Yes, he's on his way. He'll be here short, in a few minutes.
Okay.
Phil, what did you want on the 12/12 agenda?
The frequently asked questions, for cesspool closures.
Okay.
And I just have a quick question. Do we have anything scheduled for a shorelines article in December?
We do not.
Okay, I will try to do something.
Okay, great.
Any suggestions for anything related to health, not related to septic or any kind of regulation, other than, dealing with making sure people stay healthy around the holidays? And, I mean, we haven't really talked about it, but I wonder how many children in this community have been affected by RSV. Because I know several who have been. And I know that's not anything we're keeping tabs on.
Right.
but-
Then, so, one suggestion, and I'm not volunteering at all for this, but maybe we talk about the PHE and the Shorelines article and where we are with that, and, maybe looking to hire some people and, just kind of outline that.
I guess that would fall in my lap. Thank you very much.
That could be a January.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking like holiday,
Yeah.
around healthy eating.
Yeah, I'll just look at
Dealing
what I
with the
did last
stress of-
year. I don't wanna do what I did it last year
Yeah.
around the holidays, so I'll
Right.
just look at what I did and try to not do the same thing, so. But for January, just a suggestion,
Mhm.
is that we've talked about, and maybe we can talk about, in our next meeting, a little bit more about what our goals are as a board, and sort of like, maybe talk about the PHE being in that and what we're doing, but it's just throwing out that idea.
I'm just trying to get the word, just trying to spread the word, that this exists and there's employment opportunities for certain things, and just so the word gets out there and draw some more interest to it.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
it's much more than, there's much more to it than, just hiring health agents and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the money is, and some of the training they've been giving us is, for health and equity, and they really want us to try to focus a good portion of what we do with this PHE stuff on health and equities in the communities. So it'd be a good Shorelines article, I think.
Yeah, the shared services coordinator could write that one
Sure.
Yeah, yes, that would be. a
when we
good
hire
idea.
that person.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are a couple of good ideas for
Yeah, and if
sort of seasonal,
Yeah.
PHE grant, overall Board of Health goals, some of the, things we're looking forward to.
I could do a version of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas and put it in public health terms. Do something
Okay.
really different.
Something, yeah, that would be great. So thank you for bringing that up. I
All
haven't
right,
been
so I
through-
will be doing the December shorelines. It's probably not gonna be ready till mid-December, but we'll see
Yeah.
how much I can get done.
Okay.
And if anybody has any suggestions for things that might fit in there, just to send me an email so I can include it.
Okay, Great.
And it kinda goes with the pattern of what we've been doing. You did when Felden, when my turn.
Okay, great, thank you. And was there anything more, Phil, that you want to specifically about, who cares? Hello, Mr. Potter.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I got carried away.
Okay, we will, call the 4:30 discussion, Len Potter for 2 Atlantic Avenue. This is a 4-bedroom demolition and rebuild on a 10,000 square foot lot.
Correct.
And you have provided a short, some explanation, and I'm gonna turn the floor over to you for more detail.
Okay, the owners had a Title V inspection done, and the system passed Title V. I believe it was built in 2008 or 9, and they haven't used the house that often. They live in North Carolina, but they are coming back, and they're gonna build a new home. It's in the velocity zone, so everything has to go up above the flood zone. The well's about 77 feet away from the septic system, and it tested out with a 5.4 nitrate loading, but the well hasn't been used that much. They pumped it some, but probably not enough. The question is, do they need a denitrification system or not? It did pass Title V, so that's my question.
Well, we were just earlier talking about the definition of new construction, which includes,
It's a 4-bedroom.
right,
The town has it listed as a 5, Matt told me, but it's, the Title V inspector counted 4 bedrooms. I went in and counted 4 bedrooms, just to make sure. And the board can go down there and count bedrooms.
yeah.
And that's all they want to do is replace it with a 4-bedroom home.
Right, but under,
Phil has a copy of my reg.
but also under Title.
I know it's his occupancy permit, yes.
Yeah, so both under Title V and our regulation, this would on its surface appear to meet the definition of new construction.
Right. I mean, I thought so the general rule in both our regulations is the construction of a new building for which an occupancy permit is required.
Mhm.
And so it would fall under that category. And then the distinction that we made in our regulations to the provisions in Title V is kind of relevant to to the situation that you have, in which we said, where we defined it in the same way, but for the purposes of this section, meaning that for purposes of whether or not you would require a D-Night system, we're gonna treat the situation that you're describing as new construction because it's a new building for an occupancy permit. But for purposes of Title V, because I thought this is where there was an exception that came in, that new construction doesn't include a replacement or repair of a building in existence as of March of 1995 that has been totally or partially destroyed, and I thought that there was some issue with that with your building.
Well, the building itself was burned
Right,
inside,
right,
and consequently what happened is, with the fire being put out, blah, 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 they didn't strip the house out, the units, they just kind of built over a lot of it, so it's got a lot of mold in it.
right,
And the owner knows about it, she had everything checked out, and she's afraid to
Right.
use the home.
right,
She's very concerned about
Right.
the mold, so consequently, she just threw up the ghost, so to speak, and said, I just might as well replace it.
right,
So they intend to spend a lot of money because
Right.
construction of velocity zones is very expensive,
right,
but at least she feels safe about it.
right.
She found out about the fire after she bought it from some of the neighbors.
So the reason I thought that was relevant, because if all the new construction standards applied, then you couldn't have the water supply be 77 feet from the,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
so I think how this would work is that, if we applied the exception in Title V for a system that's partially destroyed and there's no increase in design flow, that you could build the house as a repair in terms of meeting the repair, in terms of meeting the upgrade setback distances, but for purposes of our regulation, we would treat it as new construction
Right.
in order to require a D-9 system. And so that was kind of, I think, how we resolved that issue,
Right.
because we knew that there would be situations like this would come up where we didn't want to prevent homes that had gotten previous upgrades, but we're now essentially, building a whole new house.
Right.
So I think the consensus is that we would be looking for a D-9 system.
Mhm.
But as far as all the other requirements of new construction, Title V, we treat it as a local upgrade.
Yeah, you can't meet Title V.
Right.
immediately.
Right. And it is like, as you're saying, a 10,000 square foot
No,
lot with a
I
four.
did submit that plan before October 15th.
Oh,
Which plan? For 2 Atlantic Avenue?
Yes. Yep, there's a site plan I have.
You have a site plan, but not a septic plan.
Well, it shows the existing system. It passed Title V September 22nd, and I drew a plan showing the new house tied into it.
Who was it as?
Oh, I see. Oh, in
Well-
terms of when the effective date of the regulation was?
Well, yeah, but
But there's,
It was prior to your regulation.
I thought that was Seabury Lane.
I didn't even think
that
about
was
it.
Seabury Lane, but with Atlantic Avenue we're talking about?
2 Atlantic Avenue.
But you submitted the disposal construction works application,
I submitted a plan for a small repair
A
to
small
tie the
repair.
new house
yes,
into the existing septic tank and therefore into the system.
okay,
And it was actually approved. Wasn't
Okay.
approved by you or the board. I think John Swartz approved it because it's just a minor repair. But I did submit the plan for the board office to review.
okay, but it didn't have D-9.
No, I did not, because I didn't realize you needed it then. I'm saying it was submitted prior to October 15th.
Okay, I don't know.
It's in your file upstairs.
Okay.
I wish I,
Yeah,
it's 2 Atlantic Avenue. I'm gonna look it up.
it wouldn't have came before us,
No, it wouldn't have come
for a
before.
small repair. It wouldn't even, made it to my desk, because it was just considered a small repair, meaning they were just gonna put a new pipe into the septic system,
Right.
basically.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I just wanted to, I'm confused, so I just wanted to, if you could just clarify can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
So,
Yeah.
The house had a fire before the owners who own it now, right?
before they bought it.
Before they bought it, but the previous owners, whatever happened in the fire, they made the house livable again.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
So,
Okay.
so
Oh,
the
I
exception that
see.
you're talking about is
Oh.
an owner ago.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So these owners
Okay,
wouldn't necessarily get that exception.
right.
That was my,
Yeah, yeah,
Question.
yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, there's no way to meet new construction requirements, I'll say that. There's no way to meet the nitrogen loading limitations, and the well's only
Well, it-
77 feet away.
If we're, okay, but if we conclude it's not, it's new construction under Title V, then it's subject to all the Title V requirements.
Yes,
Mhm.
I know that, and it's gonna be, how is that gonna happen?
And, And so the only way that, yeah. I'm just thinking out loud now. I mean,
No, it's
I'm
all right.
thinking for myself. I mean, so if you treat it as new construction for under Title V, for nitrogen loading, the nitrogen loading section would, require you to put in denitrification.
Yes, but it's 4 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms, there's no increase in flow. I submitted the plan not.
Oh, yeah, but it trips, so there are, I think there are separate requirements, right? I mean, that is, Title V says, if you're building, I don't know, maybe they would consider it a new building, but it sounds like we would think of it as a new building. The construction of a new building for which an occupancy permit is required. Now, I think if you totally, and that's why they have, and then it goes on to say that the part about new construction shall not include replacement or repair of a building in existence as of X date that has been totally or partially destroyed. So if you were, so if you were taking advantage of that exception, but what you're saying is that wouldn't make sense because it's essentially got an occupancy permit now.
Right, the fire happened on the previous owner who fixed everything and then sold the house to these people in livable
Right.
condition.
Right, livable condition, she does, and I don't, there's no comment on not wanting to live in a house that it might have mold, but, yeah.
And it doesn't fit into building renovation, does it? Because I'm reading building renovation in our regulation. Increases the footprint of the foundation and/or increases the floor living space of the existing structure. And then, of course, it converts space into a bedroom. So we would have to see the plans for the house to see if it
Well,
increased any,
It's in your file.
anyway.
But the house, if the house is being demolished and rebuilt from scratch, it's not a building renovation.
So it's not using the existing foundation.
No, it's,
It has to be raised, so it's not.
Again,
no.
Okay,
right,
okay, so it's new construction. then.
but if, yeah.
I got them to do a Title V inspection.
Yeah,
And it passed. And then the next thing was to approach the Board of Health. But once it passed, I submitted the plan, and we drew the plan as a site plan, septic plan, for the Conservation Commission, which it's been through. And it's gonna go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that was done for that purpose, and done for the building inspector. And I got it in as, I didn't know about the October, I knew about the October 15th, but didn't think that was gonna make a big difference. So I submitted it to connect to the septic tank. But it was submitted, October 2nd, 3rd, something like that. But I wasn't trying to beat the 15th, I didn't even think about this.
yeah.
But it did get submitted prior to the 15th.
But it might have gotten submitted prior to the 15th, but it still, in my mind, trips the Title V definition of new construction, which wouldn't make a difference. It would be considered new construction, or correct?
So what,
Yes, I think so.
what you're seem to be saying, and I'm just trying to think about this, is that somehow you're submitting a septic repair plan prior to the 15th, essentially kind of grandfathered you. So even though the action that is going to occur, which is the demolishment of the house and the building of a new house, occurred after the effective date of the regulation
Right.
now, that, I don't think that's how the definition would work. You know what I mean? That is, if, because because that would create an exception that said anyone who had done a septic repair on an existing system, you know, prior to October 15th, or would, and then decided to voluntarily demolish their house and build a new one, would not be required to
Right.
install a D-Night system. And I don't think that was the intention of
So the
this.
intent, the plan specifically shows the existing house to be demolished and the new piling system, and it shows the well, and it shows
Right.
the septic. So, and the intent is there. The
I
plan
see.
says to demolish and
Right.
replace with this. new
Yeah.
home. So it wasn't something like, oh, we got the system approved, now we can do what we want. That's not the case.
Right, right.
The intent was shown.
Well, demolish and rebuild should have triggered, that, in a review that's not.
I don't know, I don't.
I'm not really sure how this came about. It might have come about that way, or Lenny had questions about it and it came up. I don't remember how this initially was raised.
It
but
was raised because I knew that the plan I submitted was approved. But then we started talking about the new regulations, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
bingo. I said, am I gonna be okay or not? So, on behalf of my client, I wanna find out if the plan is okay. That's when I came to you.
Okay, so that's how it came about, and
That's
then
how
we
it
started
came
talking about definition of new construction in Title V and in the new regulation. And then I think my ultimate advice to Lenny was, we're gonna bring it by the board.
But it was submitted prior to.
Right, so I think that there was a period of time between when the board voted on the regulation initially, right? And when it took effect, because we were creating a window where people had like submitted plans and they were pending, right? And we didn't, and people had made commitments for various things, and we didn't want to, upset, people's apple carts. Like if someone had purchase and sale going forward and they were gonna fix the septic system and all that stuff.
A
So,
grace period.
yeah, there was like a grace period there, just so that we put people on notice, so there, and what you're saying is that your proposal to do this came within the grace period.
So that's for our regulation. Does it make a difference in the Title V definition? Would that trigger anything different outside of our regulation?
Right. Well, then, that's really, that's really a bigger problem, because then we would be concluding that you couldn't rebuild the house on that site because it can't meet new construction setback standards.
Or nitrogen loading?
Yeah, but or nitrogen loading. Well, right, but, and then, so then you would get, I think, if you went down that path, I think you would, this is, you get more into the manifest injustice of a variance, in my opinion, which is if you arguably said, okay, this house has all full of mold, but you're gonna have to live in it anyway. You can't do anything about it. Now, maybe you could just renovate the inside of the house and like tear out the inside and she could do something with it that way, and maybe that's the right answer from a Title V perspective, so
Can I see the
maybe that's the right.
definition, the Title V definition?
Yeah. So, which I think is maybe where,
What's the ultimate end? It's still gonna be a 4-bedroom house, and the flow does not increase.
right, I mean, so if the,
Occupancy permit or not, what difference does it make?
right. So, I guess so one option, right, if, would be to say that, okay, it's new construction under, if you tear down the whole house, it's new construction under Title V. But if you don't tear down the whole house and just renovate it, then, and that we would treat the system as a repair for the purpose of our regulation, because it is the plan, this plan was filed during the grace period. That is one option, pathway, or the other would be to say, well, yeah, I guess that's one thing to do, because then if they don't really replace the house, it's probably, I mean, you probably still need to get an occupancy permit, but I don't know if it's new construction, if you're just doing a big renovation.
You renovate, you still need an occupancy permit.
Yeah, but I mean, it's probably not new. I mean, I don't think we've got to the point, that, if she said, okay, I'm just gonna leave the frame of the house, I'm just gonna tear out the wall, I'm gonna
Right.
tear out all the sheet rock and tear out the walls, and I'm just gonna rebuild it from the inside of the house.
I don't know the extent, I know they said the interior was burnt pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah, well, I
But you
mean,
said the prior owners rebuilt the interior,
Yeah, a previous owner,
right?
they found out about the fire after they bought it, and then she's definitely afraid of mold.
Right.
And she had a mold expert come in, and they started checking things out, and it's full of mold. So she's, reluctant to live there. She's moving back from North Carolina, and she wants to have the house right. She spent a lot of money to get there.
yeah,
I think it was important just to lay all the facts out on the table so Len can get the answer he needs.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Well, I just say for me, if this house was rebuilt after it had been renovated the first time, then it's kind of hard for me to see under Title V how it would fit in this, description now. But she wanted to destroy, so if they rebuilt it but she wants to knock the whole thing down,
Right.
okay, so that's her desire. But the exception to not considering that to be new construction is where the house has been totally or partially destroyed or demolished. And I think what the situation is now it's a livable house. It's not one that, I don't think that the intention of that was to recover, where someone has a fire and says, okay, well now it doesn't make sense to rebuild
It's
it, I'm just gonna knock
livable
the thing down.
if the mold is not a fear, and she has
Right.
a great fear
Right.
of that.
Right, well, I know,
But
but
she really does, I mean, she's not doing
Right,
this.
No,
right, I
Because she
know,
wants to,
it's
she's
a
afraid.
weird situation.
Yeah.
It's a weird,
it's,
In the end, what's the result? I mean, there's no wetlands anywhere near, it's a 100-year flood zone. I mean, Cocky's Pond is probably the closest, so that's probably a good 400 feet away at least.
Do we know, just out of curiosity, when the system that's in now, when it was put in?
2008, I think it was.
2008.
We looked it up together.
Yeah, okay.
I think we figured 14 years.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right, now I remember,
I mean, to be a little bit literal about it, really what the question I think that's in front of us is, you know, does the presence of mold constitute a building that has been totally or partially destroyed or demolished or not? Because that's essentially what you're claiming.
That's what I'm claiming. That's what
Right.
she's claiming.
That's what she's claiming, and
She
so,
was in North Carolina, she'd
and,
be here.
and, I don't think that was the intent of this exception when it was written. I don't think that's the language they would have used, but I'm sure when they wrote this, they were not, you know, they were not thinking of that, and, I think they, you know, were more,
It-
anyway, I'm shut up.
Just from a, there, you know, there's a very individual perspective about the issue with mold, but in a normal sales process, don't you have to disclose if there's a mold issue?
Yeah, I would assume so, yes. But she bought that thing in, sometime around 2008, I guess, or 9. And it wasn't disclosed to her. She found out from a neighbor after that, had been a fire in the house. And then when she had the experts come in, they said, yes, there is mold.
So she's owned the property for.
No, she's only owned it about 14 years. Probably the same as the system.
Okay, so the mold is now an issue, but she's owned the
But
property.
she hasn't lived in the house.
Okay,
She lives in North Carolina.
okay.
And she has, they've occupied for a few weeks in the summertime. She hasn't been in the house since last year. She came up in September, and she stayed with her father up the street. And, she was only here for about 2 weeks, but she didn't stay there.
Okay.
That's why I told her, you gotta run the water in the well, you're sitting there dead.
How do we know that there's mold in it? Did she have a mold company
I'm
come
sure
in?
she has, yeah.
Okay,
I was there with her and the architect, and they both discussed the mold issue.
okay.
It's a beautiful home.
Oh,
You walk in
sure.
that house, it's beautiful. It doesn't need to do anything to it. That's just her fear.
Well, this is sort of like a voluntary demolition. I mean, it's not because of the fire, I mean, she's owned the property for 14 years. If she wants to, my inclination is if she's determined to rebuild, I'm not sure, I don't really have a clear answer on the Title V piece of it, but I think under our regulations, she needs to get, it would be D-night or a variance request for none that we could consider. But
I
I
agree.
think it would, to me, this should trigger our regulation.
Yeah, but I'm saying it got filed prior to your regulation.
Well, we don't, right.
A lot of plans were filed when the D-9 regulation came to be. February 15th or whatever it was,
Well, that was the,
and they were acceptable.
I mean, what's not clear, can I just ask, Robin, so now from, or maybe I should ask this to Matt. So now, assuming that this repair plan was approved, and let's say this Title V thing wasn't an issue. I mean, is there anything more that the board would have to do with the septic system there if they, totally renovated the place? Like,
It
is
would
that-
trigger the building renovation regulation at that point, if they were gonna renovate the whole place, and then,
Right,
I'd have to take a look at what
Yeah.
would be needed under that, and see if it tripped anything different than what they're doing now.
right. So I think right. I guess I'm trying to think about whether there's any act that the board would need to take, based on what she's proposing, because then, because that would just make this distinction a little more clear.
Title Five, okay, prior to your regulation, Title Five, new construction, you knock a house down, occupancy permit,
Right.
you didn't have to be 100 foot from a well. Variances could be granted for that on a substandard.
Oh, if you did it
lot.
for that, right,
Yeah.
right. If you knock the house down and if you fit under that exception, you definitely could.
But the D-night is not part of Title Five.
I know, no. I mean, I think what Matt was, I mean, there are two things, which is one, you know, does it qualify for the new construction exception under Title V because there's mold there now? So that's one question.
Right.
Of which, you know, maybe, you know, we can get some advice on as to whether that situation is considered to be totally or partially destroyed. And that would then, but let's say you, that it was not considered new construction, that is, you've got the advantage of the exception, then there's the question of whether you would still be required to install D-night under our regulation. And then you're saying that the plan that you submitted, at the time that you submitted it, would exempt you from the regulation.
Right.
And the chair is saying that she doesn't think that, you know, that's the case. And then I was just trying to think about, okay, let's say that I think Matt is right that that whatever you would be doing to the building would need us to look at the building renovation regulation, and I don't know what that would.
It's in the regs that you have.
Yeah.
Oh, these are not the,
No, I
No.
you got my packet of the regs.
I do?
Yeah, I handed them to you, you were looking them over.
Are you talking about
right,
our
because this is the
local
new,
one?
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. This has all the regs, I'm sorry. Okay.
Not that it makes a difference, but she took ownership of the house in 2012.
For me, it might be helpful just to see, I mean, there's
So-
a debate about what can and can't be done, but we don't have, I mean, this is just a discussion. I don't have any plans in front of me. I don't know if there's an increase in the square footage
Then
or.
Just continue with, do your research, figure it out. I'll talk to her and I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to evaluate the timing piece for the local regulation, and then we still need to evaluate the,
So my only point of contention is that it's filed prior to the 15th.
Okay,
Mhm.
right, and
So-
then we'll have to look at
duly
that.
noted.
What I'd like, if I'm gonna reach out to, I think maybe Phil was gonna ask me to reach out to DEP about the exception in the new construction
Mhm.
definition in Title V. I would like to give them an estimate of the degree how bad the mold is. So if she does have a mold report, is that a copy you could give me so I could look it over? On the mold report?
A mold,
Report.
Yeah.
If she did have an evaluation done, that way I can say to DEP, this place is mangled with mold,
right.
you know, or I could say, well, you know, there's not much, or, you know, however I can send them a copy of the report to look at as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And they can just advise me further on whether or not that would trigger that exception or not.
Okay, so we have two areas we have to research. One is the Title V, new construction definition, and whether it applies in this circumstance. And the second is the timing of submission, whether it is in the grandfather period, grace period, for the
Right.
local regulation.
But a demolition and a rebuild doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in 100% compliance with Title V, because there's many times that doesn't happen, it can't happen. And this is one of those times.
Yeah, and I think, I don't think we disagree with that. The question is whether a voluntary definition for demolition for mold constitutes,
Right.
you know, a building that has been totally or partially destroyed or demolished. And I think what she wants to do is, you know, to demolish a building that had been determined to be habitable, and, you know, because it's not,
Right.
for mold, and, you know.
So we'll follow up and do those two pieces of research. You'll provide the mold report,
Yeah,
and we will circle back.
okay. So you wanna put it on the agenda for the 13th then, is it?
That's the 12th. I think
The
it's
12th? That's fine.
Tentatively, the 12th, we are canceling the 26th, December
The
26th.
25th? No.
On Sunday.
We're not a Grinch,
You're
no.
not taking that night off.
So if we get answers by the 12th, we can
Yeah.
reconvene
All right,
on
I'll
that.
see what I can do.
Thank you, Mr. Potter, for coming in.
Thanks a
All
lot.
right. If you could get me that mold
So you
report
always make it interesting.
soon, because DEP takes sometimes a while to get back.
Okay. Absolutely not. You take a long time.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice.
So there is a reference here, but I don't think it would apply to them. It says, there's some other stuff, but it says any building uninhabited for 3 years. Any building uninhabited for 3 years, or requiring an upgrade to the septic system not approved under Title V will be considered as new construction and will require all perk tests, permits, fees, and plans necessary at the time of the application. So I guess that it really goes back to how we want, and it would probably help to look at what he submitted,
Right.
prior to the 15th, and see whether,
It was just really a site plan with a pipe showing, so small repairs is just, if it doesn't involve a major component, if it's just connecting to an existing system, there's no tank changes, no upgrades or something to the leaching field, it's kind of a different process, how we look at these.
right. I know, but I mean, is it, I guess what I was trying to get to was, I'm just kind of think that, the hypothetical, let's say that so I have an existing septic system, and in the course of doing a major renovation of the house, or even a tear down of the house, the septic system is not operated. Then I rebuild the house, and then I just want to reconnect. I want to plumb the new sewer pipe, whatever you would call it, from the building into the existing septic tank. And that's all that I was going to do. Would that require approval by the board? That's all I was going to do?
So if you were gonna do that, the building, prior to this new regulation, the building renovation regulation requires a Title V inspection.
Yeah,
And based on that, we'd have to look at, see how that came out.
right.
So if that failed, it's a whole different scenario.
Well, but let's assume it's not a failed system, it's not a failed system, it just has, that, I think that it sounds like, I don't mean to drag the meeting out, but anyway, it just sounds like what I think sounds like probably what we had is that we had a system that was repaired. It's like she could just move in right now and use that system.
Yeah, is it past Title V, it was
Right.
put in 2008?
Yeah.
And she could.
And she could, and
Yeah.
now she tears down the building, and then just says, okay, the only thing I wanna do is attach the,
But when you
Pipe.
tear down, when you start new, you then have to follow the standards that are in place at the time, right? The new standards. You can't say, oh, well, my house existed 100 years ago, I'm gonna tear it down and still follow the 100-year-old rules. I don't think that works that way.
No, but I'm saying if someone, so let's forget this weirdness here, okay? let's say, if someone prior to, the 15th filed, on a vacant property of land, filed, you know, a plan for new construction, a plan that was in our office prior to October 15th, and then subsequently constructed based on that plan, or built the house, whatever it was, we would not, you know, that we weren't telling people they actually had to have installed the system prior to
Right.
that. And
Well,
that's
I-
what I'm saying, that's, to me, right now, that's what this is closer to.
Well, I think we need to evaluate what exactly was submitted. I mean, we're
That's what I agree.
we have to see when it was submitted, how,
Right.
you know, was it clear that it was a demolition, and so on. So
I-
that's what we're taking the time to do,
Right.
for this particular circumstance. And then there's the second issue of,
Well, when he did it, it wasn't a I mean, just saying, when he did it, there was no demolition contemplated. I
When
think
he
what I'm
did
saying,
what?
at the end of 2008, it was a compliant Title V system. And the question is, or when he filed it prior to October 5th, whenever he filed it prior to October 15th, he was bringing his system back into compliance. It needed a repair, and it was, you know, coming back into compliance. So arguably, at that point, whatever, and I'm assuming he then did it, right? He submitted the plan, and then did he actually make the repair? You don't know, right?
no, he hasn't.
No,
He
Because
has-
he hasn't built the
did make
house.
no,
Yeah.
the house is still, the original house is still standing.
All right.
They haven't even done one
I
house
didn't know
yet.
if I don't know if they went ahead, if this was, you know, part of the sale thing, that he was gonna go ahead and,
There's no sale. She's owned the property since 2012.
okay, so whatever, so he submitted a repair plan on 2008, right?
No,
I mean,
No, we're
on,
talking
on,
about right
on just before, but then he didn't act on it.
that's correct. And so what happened was,
Okay,
so
but still,
what happened was the plan, whatever he submitted came in. And when it went through its review, it goes through John and the offices, the clerk's part of the office on small repairs treat it a little differently.
Yeah.
So when this all came about, we talked about the fact that it should have been held up because of the demolition aspect of it.
oh, I see,
And we should have bared further discussion.
okay.
And that led Lenny to come in, we talked about it, and this will let us here tonight.
Yeah, still, yeah, well, we can think about it.
So we will get more information, and I think what we can do now, however, is
Adjourn? So,
Yeah.
I move that we adjourn this meeting at 5:34 PM.
Second.
all in favor.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mike.